Thuan, can you see my slide already, Thuan?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so you see that there will be two lectures, I mean, today, but it is impossible to complete both of them. So I decided to go with the second lecture with the focus on enterprise valuation because I just want, I mean, before third holiday, so then you have some, I mean, some basic concept about when you really want to do the valuation for the whole company, the enterprise or for the companies. I mean, what are the steps we're doing and how we go to that step. And actually for the lecture today, there is a similar topic we cover in week number 7. So it depends on time. I will combine, I mean, both lecture into one. So today I will focus on a very important topic for the unit. That is, we focus on the enterprise valuation. So now it's not about the project valuation like the one I just illustrated, but I will focus on if you really want to do the valuation for the whole company. Let's say a Vinamilk is on sale and then they invite you to go there to do the valuation to tell them what should be the price. So then you go there, you do the valuation for the whole and for the whole company. So that we call the enterprise valuation. Okay, so we will start it now for the enterprise valuation. Okay, so I mean, there are a lot of important concepts we are going to learn in this lecture. And again, I mean, after the lecture, we will try to do some questions together to support, I mean, what we discussed. So far, you will see that, so, and you think about enterprise valuation. And in practice, when you want to do the valuation for the entire company, so then we need to follow the two steps. For sure, I mean, they all the steps you need. Step number one, I mean, you need to work out what is or what are the expected future cash flow. And step number two, you work out the discount rate, and then from there, you can work out that. However, the significant or the fundamental difference between project valuation and company or enterprise valuation is the life of the project is finite. The project can last for 25 years, for 40 years. However, for the companies or for the enterprise, it will last forever. And if it lasts forever, and you know that it is impossible, we can forecast, let's say, the future indefinitely. Am I right? So clearly, I mean, in practice, the maximum you can forecast is about for 5 years, and then after 5 years, you need to assume that everything remains the same, and then we use, I mean, some different method in order to work out, okay, what should be, I mean, the value for the remaining number of years for the company, right? So that will become complicated when you do the enterprise valuation. And then later we discuss about what is an issue when you do the enterprise valuation and you use the cost of capital as the discount rate. And you will see that the cost of capital is excellent when you do the valuation with the condition you assume that the combination between debt and equity remain the same for the life of the company. If you think about the project, so and then it is sensible, right? If you implement the project and then you contribute 40% for equity and 60% for debt, and it lasts for 10 years, so then clearly, it can maintain. That's why 60% for equity and 40% for debt. However, when you look for the company, it is impossible, it is impractical. If you can think of any company that maintain the same debt and equity structure for the life of the company, it is impossible. Why is that? Because the market up and down. From time to time, they use more debt. From time to time, they use more equity. And as long as the capital structure is different, so then using the cost of capital for the valuation for the company will become problematic. So in that case, we may not be able to use the conventional DCF, but we will be using the extension, what they call the ABV, or the adjusted present value. What is that? We'll discuss when we go there. Okay, so the conventional approach, when you try to estimate the enterprise valuation, is you use the DCF, discounted cash flow. So what you do is, okay, step number one, you estimate the amount and the timing for the expected cash flow, and then I say in practice, people will try to forecast for the next 5 years. And then step number two, you try to estimate the discount rate or the cost of capital. And then step number three, you try to estimate, not estimate, but you work out what is the present value for all expected cash flow. And then what you get is the enterprise value. Now, when you look at, the enterprise value, as I say, because the life of the company, will last indefinitely, and you cannot forecast indefinitely. So when you do the valuation, you need to decompose the value of the enterprise into two components. The first one is you work out the present value for the first 5 years, and we call the first 5 years, I call the planning period. And then the second one is you work out the present value for the terminal value. So look at this one, look at this one, look at this one. If I can forecast for the next 5 years, from year 1 to year 5, they all belong to my planning period, PP, right? And from year 6, year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, go to indefinitely, it all belongs to my terminal value. And the terminal value is extremely important because in practice, you will see that the terminal value contribute up to 80% of the total enterprise value. So that makes the terminal value very, very important in your valuation. So now, for the first 5 years, so that's very easy. If you want to work out the present value, so you just use the free cash flow. If you consider for equity only, so you use the free cash flow for equity, or if you want to use for the whole company, so you can work out the project free cash flow in the way, I show you how to derive that already, and you discount for the cost of capital. Let's assume that for 5 years, so the PP here will stand for the 5 years. And then from year 6 until indefinitely, you need to work out the terminal value. And if you remember when you do the stock valuation, right, you learn the Gordon-Crowe model, right, or the GGM. What it tells you is the terminal value for year 2015, so the terminal value at year 2015 will depend on the free cash flow for the same year, and that increased by the terminal growth rate. And this is what I discussed with you yesterday when I said that in Australia, we try to limit this one less than the real economic growth rate of Australia, which is about 0.9% in the last 50 years, divided by the cost of capital minus for the terminal growth rate. So this is the Gordon-Crowe model. We learned it yesterday or in corporate finance already, right? So if that's the case, so then what you can see from there is, okay, if you want to work out the terminal value for year 2020, so then make sure that you use the free cash flow for 2020, you increase by the growth rate, and then the cost of capital minus for the growth rate. The one in this multiple. So I say again, 1 plus G over cost of capital minus G, you call that the Gordon-Crowe model multiple. So that is the way we work out the terminal value. Right. In practice, because terminal value contribute up to 70%, 80% of the total enterprise value, And if you only use one model to work out the terminal value, that becomes very complicated, right? If you get it wrong, so it's really wrong. So that is why in practice, they try to use different methods in order to work out the terminal value. And the first one you look from here is, okay, the other way they can do is, okay, in order to work out the terminal value, what they can do is they use EBITDA for the company in 2020, and then they come with the EBITDA multiple. The question now is, how can they work out EBITDA multiple? No doubt for any company, regardless of it is listed or not listed, for sure you will be able to find the EBITDA, the earning before interest and tax and depreciation and amortization, right? But now, how can you work out the EBITDA multiple? That becomes the issue. And actually, if you want to work out the EBITDA multiple, so then clearly you need to develop the sample of comparables. It means that you group all the companies which are comparable to the company when you want to do the EBITDA multiple, right? So this is just some number from this example when they show you all the balance sheet pre-acquisition and post-acquisition, and we might need to use some of the number from here in our illustration in the future slide. What you can see from there is uh, when you do the valuation, and I will show you the practical example. You see that, okay, you use the information in the past in order to forecast the information for the future. I say again, when you try to do the valuation, the step number one is you need to work out the free cash flow. But it is not a free cash flow in the past, it is the free cash flow for the future. So in order to forecast the free cash flow for the future, so then you start with the free cash flow in the past, the one you get from the balance sheet or from the income statement, and then you forecast for the future. In this example, you use the information from 2014 here in order to forecast for the next 6 years. So this for the 6 years from here, I call the planning period, and that will be the step number one. You try to forecast the information included in your income statement and in your balance sheet. Okay, and when you forecast already, so then you will work out, the project free cash flow. And again, a quick reminder from there is, if you want to work out the project free cash flow, again, you start with EBIT or the net operating income. Net operating income means the EBIT. You minus tax, you go to no part, you add tax, depreciation, you tax CapEx, you tax change in net working capital, you go to the firm free cash flow here. So that is the way you work out the firm free cash flow, right? And then you will use, the different growth, right? Now this is only for 5 years. This is only for 5 years. But when you do the valuation, not only for 5 years, 5 years only contribute to your planning period. You need to do it for 100 years or even 1,000 years. So step number one, you do for 5 years, in this case for 6 years. And step number two, you work out the terminal value, right? And you know that the terminal value is extremely sensitive when you use different discount rate, different growth rate. So clearly, when you use that differently, you will see that the terminal value will be different. Let an example is, if you use the discount rate of 8.3 and the growth rate is 1%, this number represents the terminal value, right? But if you use the discount rate of 9.8% and the growth rate of 3%, you see that the terminal value is now different. You do something like that to demonstrate that valuation is not a rocket science. We need to do more than what we ask in order to make sure that when you come to present your valuation, you have, hundreds of different figures in order to defend which one is the best for the seller or for the buyer, right? Similar, if you use the different EBITDA multiple, and in order to work out the EBITDA multiple, you take the enterprise value divided by EBITDA, right? And the enterprise value, later I'll show you how to work out the enterprise value. You go to deal with the EBITDA multiple, and the EBITDA multiple will be different. In this example, if you use 6, the value will be different. What it just simply tell you is, right? You need to run different scenario using different discount rate, using different growth rate, using different EBITDA multiple in order to get to the value of the company you want to do the valuation. And then based on that, you can define the number you believe that is the most convincing figure for you. In this example, you can see what I tell you is, okay, with the different discount rate, for the first 5 years, you have that one. But and then if you use uh, the Gordon Crow model, so then that is what you get. If you use the EBITDA multiple, so then this is what you get, and the enterprise value so include 2 periods. The first one is the planning period for the first 6 years, and then the terminal value. So let's say for method one is when you consider this one, and the terminal value when you use the Gordon Crow model to estimate for that. So that is the way you can combine, you mix and match between different methods in order to derive the figure. So if you continue with this one, so you will say, okay, here, if someone look at it and then now they try to segment and for the balance sheet, so if they try to forecast different one, so then no doubt your variation will be different. And the example here is, let's say, if I assume that in 2015, revenue increased by 5%, so then that is my number. But if someone assume that in 2015, revenue increased by 10%, so the number here will be different. And when my pro forma income statement and balance sheet are different, all the free cash flow will be different. And when the free cash flow is different, so then my variation will be different. And this exactly, what they try, to show you again, the way you work out how you estimate the free cash flow for the company in the different one. Given as I say, valuation is very sensitive to the input you use. So then in practice, we run a lot of sensitivity analysis. And so it is impossible for you to do the valuation without doing any sensitivity analysis, because as I say, valuation is never a rocket science exercise. It is an art. So you need to run the sensitivity. And the good thing is you do variation on Excel, and when you just try to change the number from Excel, everything will be updated there for you. So you see, you can use, break-even sensitivity analysis, or you can do the different cost of capital, or you can assume different revenue growth rate, 5% or 10% or 1%. You can use, different EBITDA multiple when you try to estimate the terminal value. It's mean that, they represent the key, input for you to consider when you do the sensitivity analysis. It is your responsibility as the practitioner. You can pick, anything you want to do. And I say again, when you do the evaluation, because you use Excel, so when you do the sensitivity, this exercise will not take you a lot of time for you to do it. In this example, you can say, okay, when you use, different scenario, you can see that the enterprise value will be different. You see that in this example, they try to say, okay, if I look at, 3 scenario here, the first one is I use different cost of capital. The second one is I assume different revenue growth. But you can see that this is when they try to work out, when they try to fix the enterprise value in order to see what is the EBITDA multiple. This is when they try to fix the enterprise value in order to see what is the revenue growth, and similar for scale number two. So what it just simply mean from there is, okay, you need to run different scenarios and you see how, let's say, highly likely it is. An example is, right, you go with the cost of capital 10.6%, and then at the same time, you independently estimate the cost of capital. And you know that the cost of capital cannot be that low, something like that. So what it really means is if the cost of capital can be that low, it cannot be anything less than 40%. So then you know for sure the enterprise value will never be 100 billion. So that is the purpose when you try to draw the information from your analysis. So now we go to the main point when we say, okay, when you use the DCF valuation, the standard assumption for that is you use the cost of capital, WACC, and you use one value for cost of capital for 100 years for the life of the company. Is that correct? The answer is no, because the implicit assumption for the cost of capital is the capital structure remain the same. The combination between debt and equity for your company will remain the same, and that is possible for you to do so. So in that case, we will need to deviate from the DCF in order to use the different method that especially the cost of capital will be problematic if we have a time in the future when I discuss about the leverage buyout. The leverage buyout is with the LBO. It just simply means that the company try to borrow a lot of money in order to buy a new company. So clearly, for this LBO, when you borrow a lot of money, so then it becomes very risky. So whenever you have money in the future, you try to pay off debt. So the capital structure will never remain the same. So that is why that becomes the key problem for the cost of capital. Here they just try to illustrate the debt ratio for the company cannot be the same. And when it cannot be the same, what it really means is using the cost of capital in the discounted cash flow valuation will become the problematic. So if it is problematic when you use the DCF with the cost of capital, what is the method we should consider? And the method we should consider, it is not that popular at the moment, but it is getting very popular in the last 10 years, especially for the M&A activities, is you use the IPV. So the IPV stands for the adjusted present value. So it means that it's just a new approach for you to do the enterprise valuation when you believe that the cost of capital for the company cannot be the same for the life of the company. So the enterprise value will include two components. The first component is the value of the unlevered free cash flow. Let's make this one very clear. When we say unlevered, you are talking about the company does not borrow any debt. So we try to work out the value of the unlevered free cash flow. And then the second one is we work out the value of the interest tax saving. What does that mean? Because you borrow money, the interest expense will become tax deductible. So you need to work out what is the value of your interest tax saving, right? Actually, this simply, if you remember from corporate finance, it will be T time D and time that the interest, right? It means that what is the interest expense, and then you time with the tax rate, so it represents the value of your interest tax saving. So you can see that the IPV, run away from using the cost of capital as the discount rate. But when you use the NBV, so then you need to use, two components here. The first component is the value for the unlevered free cash flow. The second component is the value of the interest tax saving. Okay, so what does that mean for that? The first one is in terms of the unlevered equity free cash flow. What it really means from there is all the free cash flow for the company when we assume that the company is 100% equity finance. Now we say no debt. And the interest tax saving that I say, it just represent, the benefit you get when you borrow debt because the interest expense will become tax deductible. So in terms of the implementation, you use the IPV to estimate the enterprise value. So you see that, okay, again, there will be the two periods, right? The first one is for the planning periods, and the second one is for the terminal value. And it is understandable because it very obvious from there. I mean, you cannot forecast everything indefinitely. So let's say you focus on the first 5 years, we call it planning periods. And then for everything else, then you focus on the terminal value. So for the planning periods for the next 5 years, two components I focus on. Number one is the unlevered free cash flow, and number two is the interest tax saving for the first 5 years. And the last one here is, let's say, for the rest of the life of the company. So again, you are facing, I mean, the hybrid IPV approach. So actually, for the 5 years or for the planning periods, the method remains the same. But for the remaining, for the terminal value, so you are not using the dividend growth model, but you use the EBITDA multiple. So then that's why they call hybrid. So if you go back to here, from here you can work out this terminal value using the Gordon growth model. Whereas for here, you use the EBITDA multiple in order to work out the terminal value. Right. Okay, so now using the figures from the book, I'll try to illustrate some of the number from there. The first one that you look for the first 6 years, right, for the planning period. You use the free cash flow divided and you discount using the cost of capital, but unlevered. Say again, the cost of capital. So, but it is unlevered. Here, I say the unlevered here. Unlevered cost of cost of capital there. Actually, when you borrow nothing, the cost of equity and the cost of capital will be the same. Am I right? If you borrow nothing. So when you borrow nothing, the cost of capital and the cost of equity will be the same. So in this case, what I can see from here is the cost of capital unlevered is mean that it's the cost of equity. 9.47 is our example, and that represents your free cash flow, and you discount for the cost of equity or the unlevered cost of capital. You go to the value for the unlevered free cash flow. So the unlevered free cash flow simply means you apply the unlevered cost of capital as the discount rate in your calculation. And then the second component, we work out the interest tax saving. So the interest tax saving here is the interest expense you time for the tax rate. And the discount rate will be the cost of debt. I say again, the first component, you use the cost of equity as the discount rate. The second component, you use the cost of debt as the discount rate. So be mindful on that, okay? So you use that, why you discount everything? Because you just want to estimate the present value. Valuation is more or less about estimating present value, and you try to estimate the present value for everything you are going to receive in the future based on your expectation. So that's everything for the first 6 years, the planning period. Now we go for the terminal value, right? So the first one again, I use the Gordon growth model. So the free cash flow increased by the growth rate. But now here is the cost of capital minus for the growth rate. And using the number provided, we know that the terminal value is about 100 million using the Gordon growth model. So now if you can combine everything, when you use the IPV approach for the first, 5 years or 6 years, the planning period free cash flow, there will be two components. The first component is the unlevered free cash flow. The second component is the interest tax saving. And make sure that you use the cost of equity as the discount rate for the first component. And you use the cost of debt as a discount rate for the second component. And you use the Gordon growth model to work out the value for the terminal period. And then you add up all the three figures here. It it provides you with the enterprise value using the APV or trusted present value. If you don't want to use the Gordon Pro model to work out the terminal value, so then you can use the EBITDA multiple. So it's the same with the way you use the DCF, but for the terminal value, you use the EBITDA multiple, right? Based on, our previous example, the EBITDA for the company, you know it, and the EBITDA multiple is 6, and you discount back using here the cost of equity here, so you get the different value for the terminal value when you use EBITDA multiple. So the conclusion from there is when you estimate the terminal value, you are facing with two options. Option number one, you can use the Gordon Crow model. Option number two, you can use the EBITDA multiple. Which one is more popular in practice? They use both of them because they will provide, information for them to make a decision. So they put things together here. You see, if you look for the APV, so this is the APV. This represent for the DCF. And then if you combine with the EBITDA multiple, so you can see that, the first one is about 99.6 million. The second one is about 100 0.6 million. So in this example, you don't see it when you use, the hybrid between if you use the Gordon Crow model to estimate the terminal value, or you use the EBITDA multiple to estimate the terminal value, you can see that the number is quite different. Not like this example when it is, not really significant different from here. And this is, the summary. When you work out in terms of for this company, when you say, okay, if you work out for the first 6 years using the APV, and this is using the EBITDA. So you can see the total value here is 130 million compared here about 125. So if you do the valuation and the two method, produce the different like this 125 and 130. So no doubt, that provide you with a very easy moment. In practice, the different in terms of the figures when you use different method will be very significant. So you need to justify, how you exercise your discretion. What is the problem when you try to forecast the input? So you need to go back and you double check for that. Here, it provides you with the very comprehensive, summary for all the formula you use. On the top one is when you work out, what is the value for the unlevered free cash flow. And what I want to emphasize from here is make sure that you use, the cost of equity as the discount rate. Okay. And then how to work out the free cash flow. Start from, again, we learned yesterday, EBIT minus tax, you go to no part, add back depreciation minus capital expenditure minus for change net working capital, you go to the project free cash flow. And this, the denominator here is the cost of equity, and you can use the capital asset pricing model, to work out the scale rate from here. So that's the first component. The second component here is, you work out the value for the interest tax saving. And what I want to emphasize here is make sure that you use the cost of debt as the discount rate. And then you go to, so that is for the first 5 years or 6 years during the planning periods. You then go to estimate the terminal value. And when you estimate the terminal value again, you have two options. Option number one, you use the Gordon Crow model, right? Where you work out terminal value. Option number two, you use EBITDA multiple. So they put, every single formula there for you. And then in this example, they try to compare and contrast the difference. And you will see that, in this example, in the way they exercise their discretion, there is not the major or significant difference between the way you use the traditional or conventional cost of capital, or you yield the adjusted present value, is really significant. And you, as the valuer, you need to go back to double check everything in order to make sure that they are not that different. So you will ask me in practice how different they are. If you can do different method and then they produce the difference of about 10%, you are really, really lucky. It means that you are extremely consistent when you exercise your discretion. So if you use different method and they produce 20-25% different, then you might need to go back to double check what went wrong in order to make adjustment. Because it will be very confusing if you come to the board meeting and you present, let's say, using the cost of capital, then the number is 100, and using the adjusted present value, the number is 150, so then become very, very confusing. So no doubt the IPV, right, represent the advance compared to the conventional cost of capital, no doubt in that. But if you ask me the question in practice, which method is more popular, the DCF or the adjusted present value, my response to that is the DCF is still more popular compared to the adjusted present value. Why is that? Because they believe that the cost of capital will be different. No doubt in that, they agree with that. However, they know that variation is here and there all the time. It is impossible for anyone to go to the true value for the company. So clearly, any error in the cost of capital, if any, it will be, let's say, offset somewhere in the way you exercise your discretion when you do the valuation. So that is then why the DCF, the discounted cash flow, is still the most popular method for valuation in practice. So again, this one just provide the summary to you. So just feel free, to use it. And as I say in the exam, the formula will be provided to you. So the only thing you need to do is, to understand how to apply the formula, but not memorize the formula. Okay, so that is the enterprise valuation when you try to do valuation for the entire company. And I presented to you the DCF, the discounted cash flow using the cost of capital. And I've also presented to you the APV, adjusted present value, using the different discount rate, right? The unlevered free cash flow, you use the cost of equity as a discount rate. The interest tax saving, you use the cost of debt. And then you need to decompose your variation into two components. The first component is, the value for the planning period. So for the first 5 years in practice, and the second component is, for the terminal value. And in order to estimate the terminal value, you are facing with two options and try to use all of them in your variation. Number one is using the Gordon Crow model to estimate the terminal value. Number two is using the EBITDA multiple in order to use the to estimate the terminal value. And the way you work out the free cash flow, again, we learned it from yesterday already, but at a quick recap. So then you start with EBIT minus tax, you go to no part, you add back depreciation minus cash expenditure minus change in net working capital, you go to the project free cash flow. And in order to get a number, you need to forecast from the income statement in order to estimate the cash flow. Okay, any question in the lecture you want to ask? Okay, if not, you can have 10 minutes break and then we go back to do some questions together. So see you back in 10 minutes. Okay, so before we do some question, I will stop about 20 minutes. to ask randomly, I mean, the question to you, so to make sure that you capture the main information. Um, Other people, can you please turn on your camera? So, no doubt when you start the unit, because there are a lot of new concepts to you, so confusion is unavoidable. I mean, but when time go by, the concept is keep repeating, so hopefully you can capture for that. Given the topic today is extremely important, so I want to spend some time to make sure that, I mean, you take away something from that. So I'm going around to ask you guys, I mean, question, and when I ask, I mean, respond. Okay. First one I want to ask the question is, Phương Thảo, are you there, Thảo? Hello, Thảo, are you there? Okay. Một Thi, I start with you, Thi. Thi, can you tell us why, when we do the valuation for enterprise or enterprise valuation, we need to decompose our valuation into two different periods. One we call planning periods and one we call terminal periods. Why we need to do so, Thi?
Decompose periods and the planning period.
For my lecture.
I remember correctly, the cost of capital will change over time. So
very, very good. Thank you for that one. Excellent. The cost of capital should be different in the life of the company because the combination between debt and equity will be different. And whenever the combination between debt and equity to be different, the cost of capital will be different. So that is why when you use the DCF, discounted free cash flow, you use only one value of the cost of capital, right? And that becomes the problem. And in order to overcome that problem, what method people propose, Minh Khôi? If you don't want to use the conventional DCF valuation, what method can we use, Minh Khôi? I think Khôi Nguyên, Trần Minh Khôi Nguyên. What method we can use?
Beside the DCF, right, teacher?
So beside the discounted cash flow, I mean, what method can we use for enterprise valuation, Khôi Nguyên? That group
I think we can use adjusted present value.
Okay, very good. We can use adjusted present value. Okay, I agree with that. Thank you for that. Okay, so now go to the new method, the adjusted present value. Group I that what
yes.
do you what no not Nguyễn Thành Đạt, the one with group I and then Đạt. Okay, so not Nguyễn Thành Đạt. Okay, Đạt, are you there? Đạt, group I. Your
Yes,
name
I'm
is
here.
group I, Đạt.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. When we don't want to use the conventional valuation method or the DCF with only one value of cost of capital, right? The first one you need to do is you need to work out the present value for the unlevered free cash flow. When I say unlevered free cash flow, what discount rate should I use when I try to calculate the present value for the unlevered cost of it? Sorry, for the unlevered free cash flow. Which one should be used at a discount rate? That group 8.
Can you uh, can you repeat the question for me one more time?
Okay, when you try to estimate the present value for the unlevered free cash flow, which one should be used as the discount rate?
Mm, mm,
Nguyễn Thành Đạt.
Hello. As I remember, it's maybe cost of debt.
How?
Uh, no, the cost of debt is in the second formula. In the first formula, it might be the
Cost of equity, right?
yeah,
Cost
yes,
of equity.
The
Cost of
the second
equity.
formula.
Yes, cost of equity will be used when you estimate the present value for the unlevered free cash flow. Unlevered simply means equity only, right?
Yes.
For the present value of the interest tax saving. So then we will use the cost of debt. I'm right.
Yes,
This means
yes.
that we no longer use the cost of capital in the APV method. Right. And the APV method is superior because it overcomes the problem of a single cost of capital to be used as the discount rate. Right. And the adjusted present value is very relevant for the M&A activities or for the LBO leverage buyout when you try to borrow money to buy the company. So the capital structure will be different all the time. Okay. So clearly, I mean, believe in me, all the questions I ask you, again, you will see them in the final exam paper. And if you really understand about it, right, you don't need to do a lot of, revision. And you don't need to answer very, very long. It will not take a lot of your time, but you still, can do very, very, well for the exam. The only message I want to tell you is, for sure, when I started the unit, I told you already, you are all respected. And I really want to send a strong signal to you. When you are in the class, the only thing you should do is you should concentrate to study. If you don't want to study, guys, girls, I don't see the reason why you are in the class. That is the message I want to tell you, right? When I deliver the lecture, believe in me, I do not look at the slide because I know what are the slide about, right? I have done lecturing for this unit for 15 years already, right? So I keep looking at you and I just ask for you to show the respect by, studying. Some of you, when you were there, you laughing because you SMS your friend. And then when let's say there's nothing for you to laugh during my lecture and you still laughing. And you look at somewhere and I know where you are looking because I can zoom you in, zoom you out. So please, that is my request to you. If you are in my class, so please, concentrate. Okay, so now in order to enforce what we just learned, we will do some questions together. Okay, and I will send the template again in the window chart, and you should be able to get it now. Okay, if you can go to the window chart, and then you can download the template for chapter 9. Việt Cường, can you see that template for chapter 9, Cường?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Can you please download it? and then we will do some question together. The question I really want to do. The present value on the unlevered free cash flow. We need to concern about, right? If you look for question 9.3, what they say from here is, you have been recently hired as a financial analyst. When you arrive at work on Monday morning, the chief financial officer of the company send you a message asking you to step into her office as soon as you have a free minute. Having been on the job just 2 weeks, you quickly decide you have a free minute and go to the executive floor where the CFO has her office. You discover that the CFO wants you to educate her on the meaning and the use of the ABV valuation method. So, we just discussed about it. It's just about the standard DCF assume the same cost of capital. And the ABV you take into account the capital structure will be different. So the discount rate will be different. On the reason for her request, you are aware of the office structure about that the board of directors is considering the prospect of taking the firm private and is in discussion with the investment banker about the particulars of the deal. After leaving the office, you decide that the best way to explain the use of the ABV method is to construct a simple example. After thinking about it for an hour or so, you come up with the following illustration. So you can see that what we read in the last 2 minutes, it just, the background for the story that is nothing with us about investment. But here, you can see very stable business with the free cash flow. Yeah, okay.
Teacher, internet connection on your side is all right because I cannot hear anything.
Phúc Quang, can you hear me, Phúc Quang?
Yes, but there's a lot of lag when you're speaking.
Can you hear me now, Khôi Nguyên?
Yes, I can hear you clearly now.
Okay. Vĩnh Khương, can you hear me, Vĩnh Khương?
Yes, sir, I hear you clearly now.
So the perpetual equal to 1,000 per year. What is your estimate of the enterprise value of the company, right? And then they say, illustrate the effect of debt financing on the value. You assume that the firm borrow 5,000, 4% interest rate, and the firm pay tax at the rate of 20%. Compute the amount of taxes the firm will save. Okay. So I now go back to the Excel file. We move on with the information provided. Thảo Nhi, can you see my Excel file, Thảo Nhi?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Vy Cường, can you hear me, Cường?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So now we say, okay, what is we get Well, what is provided? So you can say when you read the question, you can say, okay, the expected free cash flow is 1,000. If you read the case study there, you see that at the moment, right, they haven't borrowed anything yet. Beta, do you think that they provide you beta somewhere? For sure, they should provide you beta somewhere. Yes, if you read, the first paragraph, it says that the firm currently has no debt outstanding and has an equity beta of 1. So what it means is debt outstanding is 0. Okay, debt outstanding is 0. And equity beta is 1. So it's a provided, right? If you continue reading, the case, they will say that the market risk premium of 5% and the risk-free rate of interest is 8%. So market risk premium 5% and the risk-free rate is 8%. And then here they say that the unlevered cost of equity for the firm is 8%. And it's very obvious. I'm right. Why I say it is obvious? Because okay, it's okay. Okay, so from the unlevered cost of equity, okay, the market risk premium here 5%, beta is 1, risk-free rate is 8%. So okay. I think that there is something wrong in the question here. Can I correct it, please? Because if the market risk premium of 5% and the risk-free rate 8%, 8% is too high. Because they tell you the cost of equity for the firm is 8%. So the risk-free rate should not be 8%. So can you please correct, the information provided, from the book? For my view, the risk-free rate should only be 3%. So that your cost of equity will be risk-free rate beta time MRP. So it is now 8%. Okay, can you please correct? That's one from the book. The risk-free rate should be 3%, not 8%. And the risk-free rate is 8%, simply too high, right? I don't think any countries, including Vietnam, when you invest in the bond issued by the government and you earn 8% per year, it's ridiculous because the risk-free rate is no risk. No risk is mean that the expected return should be very, very low. Okay, so now, based on this, limited information, they ask you to work out the enterprise value. I'm right. Just when I go into that, if you can look for problem 9.1, I leave it there for you, right? If you want to work out the enterprise value, you just simply calculate the present value for all the expected cash flow in the future. In this problem 9.1, they only provide you with 5 years and they assume that the company only lasts for 5 years. So you just need to work out the present value for all the 5 years from here, and you go to the enterprise value, right? So in this case, the discount rate is 50%, and you need to work out the present value. You go to the enterprise value. And the enterprise value, you minus for the debt amount. So then you go to the equity value. So that's simple is that. So enterprise value is simply the present value for all the expected cash flow you are going to receive. So now we go to this question, right? Now we go to the real company. They say that every year your expected free cash flow is 1,000, and at the moment you borrow nothing. All right. So if that's the case, so then clearly every year you get this one, so that become the, it's not the annuity, but it will become the perpetuity. All right. And when you learn corporate finance, the present value for the perpetuity is the ratio between the free cash flow here or the future value and the discount rate. So if you forget, I just remind you here, the present value for the perpetuity just simply the ratio between the future value divided for the discount rate. So that is what you learn from corporate finance. So enterprise value is the present value for everything you receive in the future. Right? So every year you receive 1,000, it goes forever. Discount rate is 8%. So that is why my enterprise value is the free cash flow per year go forever divided for the unlevered cost of equity. Why unlevered? Because at the moment you borrow nothing. So the enterprise value just simply the ratio between the future value and the discount rate or the cost of equity because no debt at the moment. Okay, any question on that? Any question why I work out the enterprise value in that way? So now we go for B. Vikun, can you still hear me, Cường?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you go to B, they say to illustrate the effect of debt financing on the value of the company. You assume that the firm now borrow 5,000. The interest rate is 4% and the tax rate is 20%. So here, now they decided to borrow 5,000. The interest rate is, I go to double check, I forgot. The interest rate is 4%. And the tax rate is 20%. Okay. Can someone remind me, any class, what do we mean when we say interest tax saving? What do we mean when we say interest tax saving? What does that mean? Học Diễm. What do we mean when we say interest tax saving? Diễm.
Yes.
What do we mean when we say interest tax saving?
I don't know.
What we mean when we say interest tax saving? What mean? Nguyên.
Quang Nguyên or Quốc Nguyên?
Are you Quang Nguyên, right? Yes, I'm calling you. So you, that you.
So is the interest from the saving account is taxed at your earned income rate, tax rate for the year?
Can you say again? It's not clear to me yet. Can you say again? What does that mean? Interest tax saving. What does that mean?
is the interest from a saving account, which is taxed at your earned income tax rate for the year.
Not sure what you are talking about. Why there is why you bring saving account or whatsoever here into the valuation here? What is the interest tax saving? What for?
I don't really remember.
Victor, what is the interest tax saving?
I guess that is type of tax shield. It's meaning when you borrow money, so the tax will be deducted. So they want us to calculate the interest of tax that we will save when we have borrowed money. So that's my idea.
Yes, perfect. Interest tax saving is, the tax shield. When you borrow money, you pay interest. The interest will become tax deductible. Okay, so you pay less tax. When you pay less tax, so then they call the interest tax saving. Okay.
Can you say it one more time, teacher?
Okay, so when you borrow debt, you need to pay interest expense. And the interest expense will be tax deductible. It means that you pay lower tax. So that's what they mean interest tax saving. It means that the saving due to you need to pay interest expense. Let's look at this one. You borrow money and the cost of borrowing is 10%. Okay? Cost of borrowing is 10%. However, whatever you pay for interest expense will help your company pay lower tax. Assume that the company tax rate is 25%. When you borrow with the cost of debt 10%, you only need to pay 75% of that 10%. It means you only pay 7.5%, not 10%. So the saving of 2.5%, they call interest tax saving, ITS. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so go back to the question from here where they try to ask you work out interest tax saving. So how can we do it? So we just simply take the amount you borrow, you time with the borrowing rate. The amount you borrow, you time with the borrowing rate, that provide you with the interest expense. And then you time with the tax rate, that provide you the ITS or the interest tax saving. Okay, I say again, when you take debt, time borrowing rate or interest rate, that give you the interest expense. And then you time with T, it give you the interest tax saving or the ITS. Any question on that? And then if you go to question C, no calculation, but they just ask for reasoning. There's something like, it is very obvious borrowing a portion of the firm capital reduce the tax bill. Yes, because interest tax saving. But how much should you value the interest tax saving due to the use of debt financing? After thinking about it a bit, you decide to implement the basic notion of valuation. and discount the future cash flow using a discount rate that reflects the risk of the cash flow. The cash flow estimation was easy, but what discount rate should you use? So go back to the question I asked you previously. When you try to calculate the present value for the interest tax saving, what should be used as the discount rate? What should be used as the discount rate? Lê Nguyên Khoa, what should be used when you calculate the present value for the interest tax saving, the ITS?
What should we use to calculate the present value of ITS, right? So we should use the cost of debt.
Very, very good. We should use the cost of debt. In this case, in this question, it is 4%.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I say again, for the APV valuation, the present value for the unlevered free cash flow, the discount rate should be the cost of equity. The present value for the interest tax saving, the discount rate should be used the cost of debt or the interest rate. Okay, so the answer for that question is simply the cost of debt. In this example, it is 4%. I'm right. So now I go back to the Excel file. So to answer that question, I should say you should use the 4%. This represents the cost of debt, or in this case, the interest rate on borrowing. Okay? The cost of debt or the interest rate on borrowing. And then for the, they put the formula there for you ready, should be easy. If you want to guess the value of the ITS is the interest tax saving. So 40, the discount rate is 4%. So that represents the present value for the ITS. The value of the company when it borrow nothing, here it is, I copy from there, 12.5 thousand. So what it simply tell you from there is, when you borrow debt, the value of your company is actually higher. Okay? And why it is higher? Because you get the benefit of the interest tax saving. It means that you pay less tax for the government, and that explains why the value for the unlevered firm is higher than the value for the the value for the value of the levered firm is higher than the value of the unlevered firm. Because when you borrow, when the company borrow, they can get the benefit from the interest tax saving. Okay, any question on that?
Well, sir, I have one question. It's quite general interest tax saving. So this kind of system in real world, is it everywhere, every country they will give the tax deductible for companies, or does it vary from country to country?
Actually, it is, or it should be the same for all countries view, because in any country you can think of, the company need to pay tax. Am I right? And then in any country, when you go to borrow money, you need to pay interest. And the interest expense you pay for your borrowing will become tax deductible. So what I can say is the interest tax saving applied to all the countries around us, no exception for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, listen. Any other question? Okay, just before I strongly recommend you to go home and to do problem 9.5 because it's very, very important. Just before I go into the next lecture with their time, can I just simply take attendance for today? So when I call your name, can you please, tell me if you are there? Bùi Thu An,
Yes, I'm here.
Việt An,
Yes, teacher.
Phương An,
Yes, teacher. Yes.
Yes. Okay, I hear that. Linh Chi,
Yes.
Việt Cường,
Yes.
Lê Bá Thành Đạt, Nguyễn Thành Đạt,
Yes.
Ngọc Diễm,
Yes, I'm here.
Mỹ Duyên,
Yes, I'm here.
Mỹ Hằng,
Yes.
Nguyên Hoàng, Nguyên Khoa,
Yes.
Vĩnh Khương,
Yes, I'm here.
Khánh Linh,
Yes.
Lê Minh, Quang Nguyên, Ngô Quang Nguyên,
Yes, I'm here.
Khôi Nguyên,
Yes, I'm here.
Thảo Nhi,
Yes.
Hạo Nhiên,
Yes, teacher.
Quốc Phú,
Yes, teacher.
Mai Phương,
Yes, I'm here.
Phú Quang,
Yes, I'm here.
Nguyễn Minh Thảo,
Yes, I'm here, teacher.
Phương Thảo, Ngọc Nhi, xin lỗi Ngọc Thi,
Yes.
Chánh Thống,
Yes, I'm here, teacher.
Minh Thuận,
Yes.
Hồng Thủy,
Yes.
Như Trâm,
Yes.
Minh Tuấn, and Will Battery.
Yes, sir. Just will.
Okay, that will. Okay. Okay. So as I say, the enterprise valuation will provide you the opportunity to do the valuation for the whole company. And when you talk about valuation for the company, we just need to simply to estimate the future value, the present value for all the expected future free cash flow using the appropriate discount rate. We discussed about the DCF, the dividend discount, the discounted cash flow, but there is the issue with the cost of capital. So we move to the APV, adjusted present value. However, regardless of that, the DCF is still the most popular method compared to the APV. Okay, Cường, I assume that you have question, Cường.
Yes. In the previous class, you have mentioned that today we will solve the problem 4.9. So I just wonder when we will do that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's okay, Cường. This is not that urgent because we still have a lot of time. I can come back at another time. I want to run the a bit for the new lecture today. So just remind me, but for sure I will do it. No worries about that. Okay. Okay. So in the last half an hour or so, I will take my liberty to run a little bit for the next lecture. But the takeaway, the key takeaway today, I really want you to think about it is how we can estimate the project free cash flow, right? So then the answer for that is, you saw it already. So you start with EBIT minus tax, you go to no part, you add depreciation, you minus capital expenditure, you minus for the change in net working capital. So then you go to the project free cash flow. And the project free cash flow will be used in order to estimate the enterprise value or to do the enterprise valuation. Okay, so clearly, there are, a lot of formula there, but you don't need to memorize all the formula. You just need to understand how to apply it, and that is the purpose. So now I will go to the next lecture, and as I say, there will be another lecture on the same topic. So it just depends on, how far we go. But I am not, by all means, I'm not in the hurry for whatever reason. Um, Actually, yeah, it's okay. Because I don't see that that question is a very urgent thing to do. So it's okay. I go with my lecture first. Ngọc Như, sorry, Như Trâm.
I have a questions that I see the syllabus indicates that the topic one will be taught during 2 weeks. So before that, we only study the topic one, not the two topics.
You think so? Okay. Let I go back to the unit guide here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go to the unit guide here to see. Hopefully, what you told me is correct, Trâm. So we don't need to. Okay. Oh no, this is the wrong version. I'm sorry. Trâm, you have the unit guide there. Trâm, can you show to us?
Yes, of course.
I just try to.
So I will send the unit guide in a chat box, or I will share the screen.
Now you can share the screen. Can you do it?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, can you do it? Trâm, can you show? Can you share your screen? Make sure that you share the unit guide. Okay, not anything else. Okay.
So just wait for me in a few seconds.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I can show it here. I found already near tab. Okay, I'll do it at my end. Okay. Um, okay. You can see from here is okay. I will share to you now. Oh, forgot. Why don't I use the first slide when I show it to you? Okay. Trâm, can you see the unit guide now, Trâm?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. So you can see from here is why they leave all the yellow here. I think that I think that what I did is correct. When they say session 1 and 2, topic 1, what it really means is, I do the lecture on the first session, and cô Kim, I'm not sure what cô Kim tell you about. This case study, but Lynn will do. Some question from this chapter. Okay, and so it means that the first number is mine when I deliver the lecture. The second number is for cô Kim and Lynn. So I am now in my second lecture. So then clearly, I'm supposed to go up to here. Okay, so clearly, we are on time. We are a little bit behind. It doesn't mean that we go ahead. We go before. Okay, so you can see that today I only finished enterprise variation because it's more important. And why I leave this one later, just because if you look for the future, there is the market-based approach. When I say the market-based approach, some of it, you can see that it will be similar with the relative variation using market comparables. Okay, so actually, because they come different books. So this topic, the relative variation using market comparables, and this topic, they have some overlaps. So that is why I am not, let's say, in the hurry to do this one. Okay, but I am not ahead. Actually, I am behind the schedule. Okay, because number 1 is for me, and number 2 for Kokim and for Lin, and here number 3 for me, and number 4 for Kokim and Lin. Okay, so actually, suppose today we done. Up to date, because today is my second lecture, right? So based on the initial schedule, I just only did the first one, and Colin and Kokim and Len will do the second one. However, because I was busy, the week after that, so then I swapped, and then we decided I run the first and the second, and then Kokim and Len will run the first and the fourth, and then I come back the fifth, and then Kokim and Len will run the sixth, so on and so on. And then I will go to the final one, the 15, in order to finalize the unit. So that is the way it goes. So sorry for that confusion. Okay, so okay, so on that basis, so I believe I will take again. I'm sorry, I will change my mind again. Given we do not have a lot of time, and we will be away for about a month, because when you come back, you will not see me in the first 2 lectures. After that is when Kokim and Lin will take over. So that is why I decided to leave it here as the enterprise valuation. So in the last 10 minutes or so, I go back to do one of the question I promised to do. And Việt Cường just remind me. What is that question, Cường? Is that in chapter 4, right?
Yes, that is 4.9.
Okay, 4.9. Oh, very good. Very important question. I remember it. Okay. So I will show you that question, and then we do question 4.9. Okay. Okay, Cường, can you see the Excel file for problem 4.9, Cường?
Not yet. Oh yes, I can see it now.
Okay. Okay, so I leave you 3 minutes for you to read the problem 4.9. I myself go to that problem and then we discuss this question. So the whole point of this exercise is you know that when you learn corporate finance, in order to work out the cost of debt, you just simply calculate the YTM, the yield to maturity, right? Whenever you do something like that, you assume that there is no default for the bond. However, in practice, there is the possibility for the bond to go default. So that is why, from corporate finance point of view, the YTM represent the cost of debt. But from the valuation point of view, the YTM is not the cost of debt. If you want to work out the cost of debt when you consider the bond might go bankrupt, so then you will need to work out, you take into account the probability of default and the recovery rate. So it means that it's not the simple YTM calculation. So that is very important point for you to be mindful about. So in this question, right, it asks us about how you work out um, the true cost of debt when you are facing the probability of default. And the information provided to you very easy from there is if you read problem 4.9, they say that the bond lasts for 5 years. Okay, so I put here is for 5 years. And then there is no term because they just say that you just need to pay interest. Okay, interest only. And the face value of the bond you learn from that one is 1,000. 1,000. The coupon rate it tell 12%. And the last one is the offering price. It means that the price is 800. Okay, so if you assume that no default, you can work out the YTM. Okay, you can work the YTM, and if you work out the YTM, so then what you do is you know that the coupon rate is 12%, the face value is 10, so it means that the payment is 12% times 1,000. So this one represent the coupon payment day. Okay, so if I want to use Excel, so again you can go to formula, you go to financial, and you go to write. Okay, you go to write. They ask you how long, you say for 5 years. They ask you payment, it means coupon payment 120. They ask you the price, so I say 800. Future value 1,000. It will tell me an error, but that should be okay. I will fix that later. Why? Because I need to put this one negative. Okay, so if you use the YTM at the cost of debt, it tells you it's 18.46% if you accept. What we try to illustrate, we say no, it will not be the case because this is the triple C bond, and the triple C bond is very risky. And it is very risky. So just because of that, you should not use the YTM at the cost of debt, but you should work out, what is the cost of debt after that. And the information provided to you based on that is they tell you the 10-year treasury bond provide you 5%, coupon 12%, principal 1,000, the price is 800 for 5 years. Important point I tell you from there is recovery rate 50% and the default probability 5%. Okay, so if I use the information and provided, so what I get from there is I prefer to go back this one to 800 and I go here to correct. This one is C9. So I go to the formula, I put the minus in the formula. Okay. So the question there is, because this bond is very risky, right? So then you need to work out, I mean, you should not use the YTF, you need to work out what is, I mean, the actually cost of debt for this bond, right? Okay, so in order to do it, you need to work out the default cash flow. It means that it take into account when the bond actually go default. And you can see that the bond lasts for 5 years. The option is it can go default after 1 year. It can go default after 2 years. It can go default after 3 years. It can go default after 4 years. And it can stay there until year 5 when it pay off. The first column I need to fill in is the promised cash flow. The promised cash flow is mean that what the bond profit to deliver to you. So very obvious, you say, okay, the bond profit delivered to me 120 SD coupon payment. Am I right? I'm right. Okay, so regardless of what happened there, but in year 0, right? In year 0, what you can see is if you want to have the bond, you need to pay 800. So regardless of, I mean, sorry, this one, if you want to buy the bond, you need to pay 800. If you look for the way, I mean, the bond promised to pay you, you can see that they promised to pay you the coupon payment. It is 120 for my calculation from there, and every year it will pay you 120, no doubt. They pay you on that. Am I right? However, in the final year, when you buy the bond, so no doubt in the final year you receive 2 things. The first one is the principal you get back, and the second one is you get back the coupon payment. Am I right? So look at this one. What it really means is you need to pay 800 to buy the bond, right? Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, every year you receive the coupon payment of 120. Final year, you get 2 things. Number 1 is the coupon payment 120, and number 2 is the principal repayment 1,000. So you get 1,120. So that is the profit, the profit cash flow. Okay, so now we will try to understand how to fill in the default cash flow, and let I explain to you. When I put number 1 here, it just simply means, and again, you can refer to the appendix for more information. If you put number 1, it means that the bond default after 1 year. The bond is default after 2 years, after 3 years, after 4 years, and it will never default, something like that, right? Okay. So now what happened if the bond default in year 1? You can see that there is 5% default probability. Am I right? And then the recovery rate is you should be able to recover 50%. So I say again, you should be able to recover 50%, so you don't lose everything. When things go wrong, you can recover 50%. So 50% of what? 2 things. The first one is 50%. The first one is the 50% of the coupon payment, which is 120, and the 50% of the face value, which means 1,000. So put it this way: if the bond default in this year, so what you will see is it will get back 50% of 1,000 and 50% of the coupon payment. So that's what it means, the recovery rate of 50%. So if it default there, so then you will recover 50% of what? Of the principal 1,000 and this one. So it means that you get back about 560. Am I right? If it default in year 0, sorry, year 2, so for sure this one you get 120 for the first year, and then the second year it default, so you get 560 because you recover 50%. If it default in year 3, so year 1 you get 120, year 2 you get 120, and then year 3 you get 560. If it default in year 4, so then year 1 you get 120, year 2 you get 120, year 3 you get 120, and then the last one you get 560. If it default in year number 5, so what you get is you get 120 for year 4, for year 1, another 120 year 2, another 120 year 3, another 120 in year 4, and then the 560 in year 5. Okay, so this represents the default cash flow. So I say again, the 560 represent you recover 50% of the principal and the coupon payment. So this is 500, this is 60, so that's why you get 560. Right. Okay, so on that basis, I can work out the default cash flow, like what you see there. Now, what I really want to consider is, okay, what is activity if the default occur in year 1 or in year 3 or in year 4. Right. So what you can see from that is if you look for the first one is I want to use this one. So this one is for sure it will be the same with what you calculate from here, because if the bond never default, so what you get is the YTM 18.46%. Okay, so how I work out the expected yield to maturity if default in year 1? You will see I invest 800, but I only get back 560. Right. So clearly my return for that is, you can see okay, how can I work out this one? Okay, I say again, year 1 you invest 800, sorry, year 0 you invest 800, and then year 1 you get back 560. So what is my return? So I get I take this one minus for that one, and then divide it for what? Sorry, 560 minus 800 compared to 800. Am I right? Okay, so the best way to do is my return there is 560 minus, if I minus there, so that becomes the problem. So I minus there divided by my initial investment is 800. So it means that my return is I lose 30%. I lose 30% in that year. The other option, if I want to do it quicker, I don't have to, but if I want to do it quicker, so then and then if I want to work, if I lose 30%, so then for the second year, what you can see is I can think, okay, I will lose money if I go default. So the easier way for that, the quicker way for that for me to do is I can quickly say I can use the quick and dirty formula. I consider it look like the way you make the investment decision. Yeah. What it's been is okay. If I invest that one and year one I get that one, year two I get that one, how much I earned. So that represent year one. My expected return is I lose 30%. Year two, then I lose 8.5%. So I do it quickly. I can copy across. Yeah. So what it really tell you from there is, and actually to be consistency, I can do that one as well. I use IR. So the IR just simply tell you the rate return in your project, in your normal project evaluation. Right. Okay, so that is my expected yield. Now I think that I leave this one like that before, so easier for you to see. If you get 560 in year one, but you invest 800 in year zero, so it means that in that year your return is you lose 30%. Now we go to the next one is we consider. So what is our expected our probability of default in each year. So what you can see from there is actually it tells us every year you face the probability of 5%. Okay, so it's means that every year you face it 5%. Not for the final year then, you know why? Because for the final year, what you can see is in the first 5 years, the total probability of default is, 25. So if it not default in the first 5 years, so what you will see in the final year, the probability of default will be 100% minus for 25, which is 75. So the way I work out for the last year is if it not default, so then clearly the probability for that is 75%. So they say the weighted YTM is the expected YTM from here, expected YTM time with the probability of default. So if I get that one, I time this one, so it provides me with the weighted YTM. That. And then the final point is you just simply add them up. So it will be about so this total here is just simply you take into account all the value from there. So you see that the YTM based on the expected cash flow not 18.46%, but it is 12.51%. So the YTM spread, I'm not sure here they provide you with the risk fee, right? So the YTM spread is just simply that's one minus for the risk fee, right? So you get about 7.49%. I think that I put it in wrong. I put in the wrong spot, because if you look for the YTM, so then not this one, but you look for the YTM, so then it should be your YTM is 18.46 minus the risk free rate 5.02, so you get 13.44 But if you look for the cost of debt spread, so here it is the difference between your average YTM and the risk-free rate. So what it just simply illustrate from you there is, right? If you work out the cost of debt using the concept the bond will never go bankrupt, so your YTM is 18.46%. Right. However, if there is the possibility the bond may go bankrupt, then you need to work out the default cash flow in that way. And when you work out the default cash flow, you can see that the final, when you take into account, you see that actually your return when you invest in the bond is not that high, 18.46%. It is only 12.51% if you take into account the possibility the bond will go bankrupt along the way. So that is, the meaning of the exercise. So I say again, when you calculate your YTM, the yield to maturity, when you achieve that no default, for this bond, you think that you earn 80% for your investment, right? It's wrong. When you consider everything in terms of the probability of default, actually you only earn 12.51%. So, the whole purpose of the exercise is they just illustrate, how you can take into account the probability of default. And that is something new you never learn in corporate finance. I don't think, I will ask you to calculate for that, but the concept there is your return will be lower when you invest in the bond, when you take into account the probability of default. Okay, I can save this one and I can send it to you. So then, if at home you want to play around, you can do that. But that's the way you take into account. Okay, okay. So I will save it again. Where I save it? Can't remember. Here, and then I will send it in your chat box again. No, let I open it again. I don't think I save it correctly. Where I save it? Sorry. I can't find where I save it. I just close it. I can't find where I save it. Here. Very weird. I save it. I cannot find it. Oh, here it is. Yes. Okay. Save as. Just a second. I need to save it again. Okay. I just sent in the